The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America.
The US speech was very extraordinary because J.D. Vance, the vice president, came in and he basically produced a very long and quite detailed criticism of European democracy. His whole speech began by him saying Europe doesn't face major external threats. The biggest threat is internal, is the non-functioning of European democracy. So that's a very astonishing set of remarks from an ally that comes to Europe. So a lot of people have basically concluded that he's given a boon to the far right in Germany, whether this is electoral interference or not. And then the Chinese speech was very extraordinary because the foreign minister came out and he defended a multilateral system, a rules-based system, fighting against climate change, being predictable in international affairs. I mean, all of these things that quite clearly the Trump administration is not advocating for. So you see this clash now where the US seems to be pulling away from the international system, and China, that is in many cases portrayed as an outsider, a spoiler, a revisionist power, has actually come here to defend the international systems. The tariff war and the attacks on international trade are very damaging to Europe. Europe is a export superpower, trading superpower. We have the largest proportion of our GDP dependent on external trade. The weakening of the multilateral system, departing the World Health Organization, UNESCO, defunding elements of the UN, imposing sanctions on the International Criminal Court. All of these things run contrary to Europe's foreign policy, which is very much about the multilateral system. So I would have to say that the primary challenge that we face at the moment is the changing international posture of the United States. This is a fundamental challenge for Europe. The United States is moving from being the builder and the sustainer of an international system of rules and institutions in the diplomatic and security space, in the trade space, to being actively dismantling those institutions. So if this administration continues to pull away from these things and to retreat, the world will become more unsafe. It will affect the periphery of the order, but it will in effect produce a weaker international system and an unsafer one. I think the unipolar moment has ended. My hope is that China and the US find a way to channel the competition components of the relationship and still manage to address the shared challenges component, so that there is some governance and some diplomacy that is productive between the two countries. I think this will be very important for the sake of everybody, to be quite frank, because it's going to be very difficult to arrive at any agreement, meaningful agreement on climate, on energy, on migration, if China and the US cannot sit down and negotiate these things. I think we're moving to a world where you will have two very large blocks in the US and China, and then you will have a very large space of the world, which people call the Global South or the New South, that will resist alignment. These are very large countries, some of them, and these countries do not want to see a new Cold War. They want to see a world where we can arrive at trade agreements. They want to see a world where we can govern climate change. That I see a huge space for the South to play a role. So then a question emerges, which is very interesting, I think, which is, how much of a North-South dialogue will there be? And how much are they going to be able to engage with the North in a constructive dialogue? And I think that's where a lot of the diplomacy of the 21st century is going to occur, is in this North-South dialogue.